Jackie Rogers, the founder of Smokenders here in New York. We did something with this organization on the local news program. And one of our correspondents, Norma Quarles, was very, very successful in ridding herself of the habit. And she herself, Miss Rogers, was a compulsive smoker for over 20 years, about 22 years, and I trust you are now off the evil weed.
Free.
You have ended. She is free. See, that's the old key word. I'm
Yes.
still a slave, you're still free. How did you quit?
Oh, it's such a story. I quit for 17 years, steadily, on and off.
Every night when you went to bed,
Every
right?
night when I went to bed.
Every night when I go to
I'm not going
bed?
to smoke anymore. Tomorrow I'm not going to smoke. And I wake up in the morning and I think, what is this important thing I'm not going to do today? Well, I'll have a cigarette and think about it because I couldn't think unless I had a cigarette. But my husband was very much part of this. He was very unhappy because I smoked. He was a young dental student when I met him, and he began from the very moment we were married practically to try to teach me all the good, rational reasons why I should not smoke. And he explained the physiology and the pathology of smoking. And so I tried to quit repeatedly, off and on and off, for 17 years. I tried everything. I tried playing games with myself. I was very ingenious. I had devices to quit smoking you wouldn't believe. And I tried all of the local Cancer Society programs and the 5-day thing. And I tried a few of the covert sensitization things myself. Everything that came along. I read every book. And I would quit for a day or a week or a month, sometimes for 2 months. But I would be so miserable, so absolutely miserable without a cigarette that I felt life wasn't worth bothering with while I wasn't smoking.
Up until tonight, I've never met anybody who quit who has not said, I still crave them.
Well, I don't, Tom.
Don't you
and I'll
really?
tell you
And
why.
I
I was so miserable without a cigarette that I felt finally that I simply couldn't live without a cigarette and that it was hopeless. And my husband and children were very distressed. And finally one day, about 10 years ago, John, my husband, said, Jackie, you've got to find a way. Finally I tried a psychiatrist and I had gone to hypnosis and so on, all very unsuccessful for me. And I said, but how can I do it, John? I've tried everything. I surrender. I give up. I'm tired of quitting. I'm emotionally exhausted from quitting. And I feel like I'm not worth very much anyhow. My willpower I must have
Really
no willpower. Stink. I just had no regard for myself. So he said, Jackie, you've solved other problems. You've got to find the way for yourself. You've looked to the experts. There aren't any for you. You go back to the books. You find out about this madness, and you solve the problem for yourself. So I had a year's sabbatical from housework and children and things like that. The children took care of things, and my husband did. And I researched it, and I looked into it, and I found all the mythology. It's a lot of baloney that they tell us. We smokers have had one of the greatest snow jobs about what the smoking problem really is, and that it is a nasty little habit that's dependent upon your willpower and your marvelous intellect, and all that sort of thing. It isn't. It isn't that at all. It's a very complicated problem that needs a very interesting and complicated solution. So I put all the things together that I knew I needed in order to break every part of the habit. I found 138 different elements that the smoking habit is, and I listed them, and I decided how I could treat each one of those for myself to break it. A conditioned response, or a need for oral gratification, or fatigue when I needed a pickup, or the social encounters, because I didn't think enough of myself to think that I could talk to someone like you without a cigarette. So I took them and I lined them up and I planned something for each one of those things.
Dealt with each one in turn. Huh?
And I put them in a long frame because Dr. William James, the psychologist, said it takes 6 weeks to learn or unlearn a new habit. I stretched it out, and I required that I continue to smoke during all of this while I broke the habit and gained control of it. Because the end result I wanted, Tom, was not to feel rotten and lousy and to resent life and that I was being deprived, but I wanted to feel free. I wanted to walk away from this thing and feel like I've added something to my life. And I did it, and I was so astonished when I came to my cutoff date. I was so surprised that I didn't have this nagging, compulsive desire for a cigarette. Everything I did used to have this. I was free. I really physically and emotionally felt free. And I thought, this is unbelievable. It's unreal. The world really is so clean and so clear and so fresh. And I don't need to smoke.
Isn't it, though, nice and fresh in here?
Well,
It's delicious.
It has a different look when you stop smoking.
Sure it does.
All right.
And it was... Well, I have come to believe that most people would like to quit smoking. They sincerely feel that they can't quit. They've taught themselves to believe that it's impossible to quit because they've tried so often and failed so often. And I think that the only reason they don't quit is because they don't know how. And I think they don't know how because it's very complicated.
Oh, but there is a way to quit. That's simply not to buy them anymore and not, and not to smoke them anymore. But that's where the problem comes in. Because when that phone rings in the morning...
That's right.
That's right. Well, the trouble...
Well, it's the kind of degrading thing, though, that you go through for getting other people's or playing games with yourself. I think that does the most damage. I'm myself... didn't get any support or encouragement because of the health scare or the news of the diseases that would be caused by smoking. It didn't help me at all. I knew all of that. My husband taught it to me very patiently through all his pathology
What I read so much
texts.
about smoking and diseases, I've decided to quit reading. Right.
Yes, exactly. Or it makes me so nervous when I know all that I have to smoke more.
You know, there was a great story told one time. I believe the Seventh-day Adventist Church has a great anti-smoking program, which they run in conjunction with films of an operation on a person's lung.
Right.
And somebody once told me when I was at one of these quit smoking clinics, they said, we went to see this picture of the lung operation. We got out of the theater and everybody said, that was awful. Give me a cigarette. I can't stand it anymore.
That's right.
Well, that's true, but that's exactly the problem, I think, with most efforts to quit smoking. People think that if you approach a smoker intellectually and say, my dear, you're a damn fool for smoking. You know the danger it's doing to you. Life is very good. You shouldn't cut it short or destroy the quality of your life while you're alive. Intellectually, then you know it's bad. You should quit smoking. Well, that's what's wrong. The premise is wrong. Smoking is not a rational situation. That's right. It's completely irrational. It isn't an intellectual exercise. We smoke because of emotional reasons as well as physiological reasons. I didn't think I could ever quit smoking. I really didn't. It was so deeply ingrained in everything I did, not just the phones and the car, the ignition keys and the cocktails and talking to people. It was everything I did. I was just an absolute compulsive smoker, and I just thought I could never quit.
Smoking is a nervous habit that has nothing at all to do with quieting your nerves.
Yes, that's
I had
true.
this pointed up to me. I went through this program, and I won't mention it because it's a commercial venture, of aversion therapy, whereby small wires are attached to your arm, and you are placed at a table and you are told to sit down and smoke, not to inhale. And you sit at the table, and they must have had 8,000 cigarette butts piled up on this table. Wow. And then they have all these pictures of alive with flavor, freshen your taste, it's springtime, light one up, and you're looking at these pictures of beautiful men and women and cool mountainsides, and you're smoking these terrible things, and every time you take a puff, they put some voltage in your arm, and you begin to realize that all the things we have come to associate with smoking cigarettes, like cups of coffee and lovely conversations and cocktails and after dinners, if you take all that away and just sit and think about smoking, it's a terrible, terrible thing to do. They taste awful. There's no question about it.
The point is, it's a learned habit. It is something that you learn to associate with getting up in the morning, with the coffee, with the telephone. And it is also associated, as Jackie says, with emotions. So that there are a variety of things that you associate them with, and you keep reinforcing that association every time you take a cigarette. So in order to stop smoking or become an ex-smoker, you have to unlearn a habit.
Right. And in addition, I think the thing that's little recognized and not very often spoken about, Tom, is the fact that nicotine is addictive. And this is one of the great secrets of our civilization.
Now, you see, that's an interesting thing to talk about, because one of the ones that I went through with the wires again, and there was more to it than that, they kept saying to us that nicotine was not addictive. They said, oh, there are a small percentage of people who might become addicted to nicotine, but mostly the body really develops no craving for nicotine. Baloney.
Yes, what did you say
well,
about
right away
that?
I said to myself, you know, I'm one of the 1/2% who are addicted to nicotine, and I can't kick it.
Tom, that's exactly how I felt. I thought certainly everyone else was in control, that they wanted to smoke because they enjoyed it, and
you
they liked
loved them, didn't you?
Of course.
You loved them.
Sure. I couldn't live without them, is what it was.
But your whole point is...
But I didn't really, you see. The point that I learned when I did my research was that I discovered that, first of all, it was addictive. I wasn't weak-willed.
It depends
Hallelujah. Secondly, I didn't really enjoy the damn things. It was just I was so miserable without them that when I took a puff, I thought, oh, relief, heaven, you know. And I was taught to believe that this was
See, I never really
enjoyment.
worry about enjoying cigarettes, but I have them in doing things I love. Like some evenings I'm sitting here talking with fascinating people, and
Yes,
boy, I have a
that's the
cigarette, it's
conditioned
great.
response, of
Or you're
course.
out and you're having a wonderful little
Yeah,
party with cocktails, and there they are on the table, and let's have one.
But you know, the thing that interests me most of all, now I've read case histories of something like 70,000 smokers since I started this thing 8-9 years ago. And they all have the same feelings. They all say the same things. They say, just as you're saying, they use the same rationalizations. They say, but I enjoy smoking, and it's the only thing I do that's bad. It's my only vice, and I have to die of something anyhow. I might as well die a few years younger. They go through this whole liturgy. They all say the same thing, but what I've learned is that none of us know that every other smoker is saying the same
Feels
thing.
exactly the same
Yes,
way.
right.
That's right. Look,
Most people think they ought to quit. Most people are told a lot of people are told they have to quit. But almost nobody really wants to quit, or indeed they would have stopped smoking. Now, they have some idea that there might be some improvement in the quality of their lives if they don't smoke, or their pocketbook or something. Right. There's an outside motivation for them to quit smoking, but it isn't a meaningful motivation. And it's very important that they find themselves in the hands of someone who can help motivate them to begin to want to quit instead of feel that they ought to quit. And as they're learning to develop their motivation and their desire to quit smoking, if they are lucky enough to be put in the hands of someone who helps them break the habit into manageable, controllable segments, so the conditioned response aspect of it is broken. They don't respond like Pavlov's dogs every time the coffee cup clinks. That the addiction is taken care of and they're perhaps detoxified before they stop smoking. And they change their attitude about themselves so they don't make excuses for themselves for needing a cigarette to be a better performer or a better business person or a better writer, and they improve their self-esteem. They will then come to view quitting smoking as something that's very pleasant and very attractive rather than some deprivation. I believe that if a person wants to smoke, it's entirely their own business.
It always has to
Entirely.
be a choice.
And
yes.
quitting is a very personal thing. And so, but the method is what's been missing in this country for all these years. People have wanted to quit to the degree that they are righteous or they feel proper, that it should be better that they quit, and not set an example for the children or something. And they strike out to do this, and they go to one of these things, or they pledge that they won't, or they hide their cigarettes somewhere, or they buy a brand that they don't like.
Or make a bet with somebody.
But
some people this work.
For some it does,
Yes,
but
right.
for the majority who are smokers
Well,
like me, they feel so trapped. They learn failure. They just keep constant failure. Everything they try, they start smoking again. They lose their self-esteem and they don't know how to lick it, and they surrender.
That's right.
They give up. They're emotionally exhausted.
That's where I am, my friend.
With instruction, with
Yes.
good step-by-step
right.
instruction, not hit and miss, not maybe try this and do a little of that.
No.
But absolute instruction. It's almost the same as if you were going to build a nuclear reactor. It would be pretty bad if you went out and tried to do that because you saw what it was like and you had some parts and pieces and you had to throw this thing together. This smoking thing is very, very, very complicated. I have more respect for it the more I get into it. The important people, the people who are totally successful in their lives, who are still chained to this damn thing and lose respect for themselves.
Tom,
they are
do you-
Oh, but I must
available.
tell you, these smokers are great, and they're taking the time. I've seen it. We have 70,000 of them that we've helped who have 10 night a week for 9 weeks, and they come out of this feeling free, and they say, I can't believe that I've gotten away so easily from this thing I thought I would never get free of. And they've given their time. They have taken the time. They mean to get free, but they don't know how. They need instruction, a direction,
Well, they
some
need
positive
yeah.
direction to help them get free.